What's going on, guys? Welcome back to No Reserves Radio. I'm your host, Rehn. With me, as always, Angelo and Alex.
Alex, huh?
Yeah. Listen, okay. I don't write the rules. I'm just here. If you're listening to this, it's releasing on our normal football podcast day, and you're wondering one of two things. One, what is Rehn doing here? Or two, who is this guy? Both are fair questions. So if you look at your calendar today, the day you're listening to this, you'll notice it's October 31st, Halloween, right? So we were thinking, what's the spookiest, scariest, most terrifying thing that we could do for a Halloween special? And we thought about it for a while, and then what we came to was crossover episode.
I suggested just showing Ren's gameplay on 2K, but he didn't want to go for that.
Yeah, no one wants to see that.
That's too scary.
So what are we doing here? I guess that's the question that you're asking. It's the question that we're asking. We're going to combine the two sports a little bit here. We're going to blend them over because, again, crossover episodes, they're freaking terrifying. We're going to go through the scariest performances of players from both fields. That could mean good, that could mean bad. You just have to listen to find out. Before we get into that, I don't know if you guys do a question of the week over on the football podcast, but it's a mainstay of the basketball podcast. So
we do not.
The question of the week this week is, what is a fear? Like, what is your biggest fear or recurring nightmare you have? And so I'll start it just to give you guys a little more time to think, because I did spring that on you just before we recorded. For me, it's actually a recurring nightmare. It is falling down an elevator shaft. Not like the elevator collapsing, but like the doors open. I step into the elevator, but there's no elevator there. Like it malfunctioned, and like, falling through the elevator. I don't know why, but if you ever ride an elevator with me, you'll notice that as soon as the doors open, I check. Because I'm 90% sure like the way I'm gonna go is like Wile E. Coyote. Like I'm gonna walk out onto the elevator. I'm gonna hover there for 2 seconds. I'm gonna hold up the sign that says "Yikes," and then just death.
Insta death.
Not instant. Hopefully instant, but probably not. But yeah,
no, I mean it'll be instant death once you crash.
Unless it's only from the second floor.
Oh, that would suck.
I could be lazy. And third floor, like I don't want to take the stairs. I don't know. What about you guys?
Suck. Freaking driving in Indiana.
Mine actually is Ohio. Like every time I've driven in Ohio, I've gotten a flat tire. Every single time, it never fails.
You've never driven in Michigan, have you?
I haven't, actually. That's weird because I live really close to Michigan, but I've never been to Michigan.
So I know you like bash us for our roads, but I had an old boss and he's like, "Hey, pick me up at this location," and I just put it in the GPS and I didn't think about where it was. It was actually in Michigan, and I didn't realize it until I got to I was driving and it was just like smooth roads, and then it was just like bumps. I was just hitting a bunch of bumps. I was like, "What the heck is happening here?" And then I looked at the GPS and it said Michigan. I was like, "Oh, I think in Michigan."
Probably just like road damage that radiates out from Detroit.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. They also drive like stupid fast. Like if it's 70 and you're not going at least 90, you're in the way.
I mean, if you're on the highway and you're not going at least 90, like
you're in the way.
Yeah.
I don't really have to worry about that in Portugal, to be honest, because the streets in every single city are just pretty darn bad. So.
Yeah, and also like in most countries, like the country as a cityscape really wasn't designed around the automobile, because like if you look at like inner cities, like bike lanes and all that crap, like it is not very intuitive at all. And like one thing that the rest of the world definitely beats the US on is like how their cities are designed for pedestrians, because it's not great here in the US.
Yeah. On the opposite end, though, I would say that a city, at least that I've been to, that is totally not fit for cars in that instance is Sevilla. That is a nightmare to to drive in because like the cities are super like the streets are super like narrow. You basically like, can't fit any sort of a big car in there. You just have to go with very small cars, and there's absolutely no parking space whatsoever. When I went there on vacation, like in August, there was absolutely no way I could park in which I didn't have to at least spend like an hour looking for a spot to park. So it's nuts.
Some
All right.
things that we never experience, Ren.
Yeah, no. I wait, Alex, what's your biggest fear?
Losing
As
in
I
the
was saying
playoffs.
prior, other than like actually never winning the Dynasty League in which I'm with Angelo for like I don't know the last 5, 6, 7 years. Outside of never winning that, I would guess it's like breaking some part of my body because like ever since I was pretty small, I don't think I ever had an injury that broke any single part of my body, like an arm, like a finger, nothing. And I have this tendency of always messing up my ankles when I'm like going down a flight of stairs or something like that. There's there's rarely a day in which I do that, in which I don't basically like mess up my ankle. It's never something severe, but I'm just waiting for the day in which it is severe and that I just completely mess up my whole ankle. So that's a pretty big fear that I have
That's
whenever I
called
go down a
getting
flight
old,
of stairs.
Alex.
But I mean,
It's not
it's been for a while now. Like ever since I was, I don't know, like when I went to college around 18, 19 years old, like that happened to me basically on a daily basis because I had to go down and up a bunch of flight of stairs, and that always happened to me at least once a day. I mean, sometimes twice. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna end up basically messing up both ankles. So that's gonna be pleasant.
I played basketball growing up, so like I can't count how many sprains I've had on my ankles, so I like permanent ankle damage. It's awful. Thankfully don't think about that, and I probably should. Like when I'm running downstairs, that my ankle's just gonna collapse and I'm gonna go tumbling. But
I still like. I don't. So like, Alex. So me and Ren, I went down to Indiana to meet Ren one time, and we played basketball. This was like
in 2016, it was a long time ago.
it was
This
like
was a
it was
long time
almost a
ago.
decade ago. Yeah. And we were playing basketball, just dribbling around, and we did 1-on-1. And this man drove at me, and I just looked for a second. I was like, "Are you seriously gonna do this?" And I just jumped up and I just like met him, and he just fell flat. It
There's
was
so Angelo and I are about the same height. There is
I
a pretty significant weight difference between
like
us.
100+ pounds probably.
Yeah, yeah, it was probably not the smartest thing I've ever done, but I play pretty reckless when it comes to basketball. That I've
Yeah,
never gotten worse than an ankle sprain or a concussion is kind of
surprising.
a medical miracle because I really just sacrifice the body for pickup games. I'm not the
There's a
smartest person.
there's actually talking about like being pretty reckless in doing sports and so on. I was pretty into like, and I'm still quite a bit into, but wrestling, like WWE, all of that stuff. So when I
Hmm.
was younger, I believe it was around when I was 15 years old, 15,
Please tell me you
14,
jumped off
something
the
like that.
trampoline into something.
Oh, there, it was close to that. There was a thing there in gymnastics, which we call it here, it's a horse, where basically it's the one thing that you just you go on a small trampoline. It's not actually like a trampoline. It's just a small thing, and you basically just split your legs open and you just jump through that. I'm not sure if you guys have it there. You probably do, but it's something like that, and it has some height. Like it's not that big, but it's like I don't know, 7 centimeters, 70 centimeters, which I'm not sure how much it is in inches, but it's not a whole lot, but it's quite a bit. So I was on top of that, and like I had this crazy idea. I'm gonna do a swanton bomb out of this into a mat. What my like pretty underdeveloped brain didn't like realize is that that thing is not high enough for you to jump and pull out that move. So I went and did it anyway. And a friend of mine was basically like sitting there watching me do this. And so I do the swanton bomb. I land on my neck in the mattress.
Oh no!
Yeah. When I get up, I'm totally fine. Like my neck is a bit sore, but other than that, like nothing big. And when I get up, my friend is looking at me with his mouth wide open, like the worst look of concern you could ever see on the face of someone. And like at that point, I
Like
almost
saw
thought that
death at
I
that
was
point.
dead because his face was looking at me like, oh my God, the dude died. And no, I just like walk up and I'm fine. But yeah, that was like completely asinine. Like it's one thing if you do it from like a pretty like high spot and so on. Like okay, and there's height to do that. There's a way you can land. There was absolutely no way I would land that from that height, but I did it anyway. So that was
Yeah, you
fun.
need to do a full flip basically.
Yeah, I basically just did an F flip, so I landed like straight on my neck.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Ugh. Um, just in the not to change the subject, but it just they. So have you guys seen the new City Edition jerseys for the NBA?
They're pretty ugly for the most part, but
These
yeah.
these are the absolute worst that they've ever been.
Yeah.
But the Pacers is like I like the jersey. I hate the text on it. I'm about
Text on
to
the Warriors. Just text on the Warriors.
um
I'm actually gonna check those right now.
Check the Warriors text. Just do yourself a favor and just
hold
check
on,
that out.
let me well, so forget the jerseys for a second.
Uh-huh.
I'm about to put in the Discord my newest biggest nightmare. It is the court the Pacers are playing on with their city jerseys. Why did it not add that? Add that. Send. That is the ugliest court I think I've ever seen.
Oh, that's disgusting.
That
Channel.
is, if you're listening at home
What?
and you haven't
Did you
seen it.
make this?
Okay, wow, the disrespect. First off, but also thank you for thinking that I could design something that would be played on by a billion-dollar organization. I appreciate that. So if you're listening to this and you're used to our football podcast, which by the way, you should be, this is a little different this week. It's a lot more just fun and off the cuff. As a little bit of a segue, if you click down into the description of this on whatever platform you're listening on, you'll get a link to all of our socials where you'll get information about this beforehand, so you're not surprised. So go ahead and do that. So do you guys want to get into the
I got a few. Yeah.
the list, or do you want to continue going completely off the rails and talk about our favorite horror movies?
Yeah, off
I'm
the
down
rails.
for that
Off the
because
Off
rails.
the rails?
Off the
I
rails,
love
buddy.
horror movies.
Okay, we're going off
So,
the rails. We are going off the rails. Alex, you will start us off then.
I mean, there's just so many movies that I like because since I was little, like my favorite genre is always horror movies. So I've watched countless movies, and I have this thing in which I've told Angelo before, but I'll just sit down on a random night and I'll watch 2, 3 movies.
Yep.
I just love movies. So, I mean, I gotta say, like, it's Halloween. We have to go with the icon. So I'm going with the Halloween, the OG
Yeah,
Halloween. Just
that's my
don't
fave too.
don't mess with like the other random things like Halloween 2.
Uh-huh.
Halloween 2 is okay, but like the rest is kind of pretty
The
bad
modern
until
ones. The modern
yeah,
ones.
the first modern one, the
Isn't
one
bad.
that came out in 2019, 2020,
Isn't
something
bad.
like that. Yeah, that it's a direct sequel to the first one. That's pretty good. After that, they went off
The
the
third
rails
one.
again.
The third one did it for me. Like, oh my god.
The third one is the second. The second one is probably still worst. The whole hospital scenes is just
It's worse, but it's
bananas.
not offensive. The third one is
Yeah,
offensive.
the third one is terrible. Like, there's not a
So-
saving grace in that movie.
So for me, like I'm not a fan of most horror movies, and it's not for any reason other than I want to be scared. And the jump scare, it's cheap horror, right? Like it oh, I showed something scary that you weren't expecting on the screen for a split second, and that's scary. But for me, that's not really scary. That's a cheap trick. So I think the classics are the go-to because I think that
There, I jump scared everyone. Gone. Sorry.
That one is so loud.
why did we let him get a soundboard? I ask this every week now. Why does he have a soundboard? But the classics are really good about that because there's a difference, in my opinion, in horror when it comes to like something jumping out at you and going boo, and like something making you think at all times that something's about to jump out and yell boo, but nothing ever does. And I
Yes.
think that constant tension makes it that much
So
scarier.
it's a give and take. You have to have that tension, but you also have to relieve that tension. Like there has to be a payoff.
I don't know if there does.
There does. That's just me though.
I guess we
think
can split this in like two, basically like classic horror movies and
Yeah.
modern horror movies. I guess that's
So-
better then.
So if we're doing that, classic horror movies, I definitely agree. I think Halloween, like from
The first Halloween movie.
yeah, the first Halloween movie, from a logical point of view, it's awful because you like all of the old horror villains just shamble towards you and like they're tripping over everything, and
Yeah.
but it does have that psychological horror that's what I was just talking about, where there's something just discomforting the entire time you're watching the movie. You do have the jump scares, but the jump scares don't feel cheap.
Mhm.
Whereas
But that-
modern horror movies,
But that's what I mean by a payoff. They build the
Well, yeah.
tension and then they give you go.
But I don't think they're jump scares in the same sense, because it's just like, oh, there's Jason. He's standing there. Like, that's the jump scare. It's not like... So my favorite modern horror movie is probably The Conjuring, because I think it does do the psychological horror pretty well. Like, the entire time you're just kind of uncomfortable during the movie. But then, like, when it's, oh, here's a completely demonic face that looks super unnatural just right in this, like, the entire screen, that's a cheap jump scare. It's not, oh, we walked around a corner and here's Freddy. Like, that's a jump scare, but it's a good jump scare. It's not something that's unnatural that's taking up the entire screen to get a cheap shock out of you. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying the jump scare itself is bad. I'm saying when you're doing it cheaply, if you're just doing it to get a reaction out of someone, then your movie isn't scary enough. Because if your movie's scary enough, then just the appearance of your antagonist is going to cause that reaction. You feel me?
I feel you.
I guess I can go second then. I'm not usually super into movies like paranormal stuff and so on and so forth. But I guess I have three movies. I'm usually pretty indecisive in this stuff because I just love horror movies. So, but I have three that take the cake for me in terms of horror, modern horror movies. The first one I would say is Hereditary. Like that one has a bit of the paranormal stuff, but it's pretty well done. Like I loved it. Really kept me on the edge, and it was one of the first few movies, like the late ones, that actually kept me on the edge of my seat. Then I would say Midsommar was another one. That movie is just disturbing as hell. Like it's the one my girlfriend is not into like horror movies until she met me. After that, she has been starting to get more into it, and she watches most of them without much of an issue right now. She absolutely despises that movie because of how uncomforting it is. And the last one I would say is the Get Out. Like everything Jordan Peele usually gets it
Oh,
going
yeah.
for me, and Get Out, it's pretty well done. Like the twist, it's pretty good there, and like the
Pretty messed
whole
up twist.
yeah, and the whole like message behind it, it's pretty good. Like it's a pretty good film overall.
Yeah.
So I recently saw, because Alexis dragged me to this, is the Five Nights at Freddy movie, and I am really conflicted on how I feel about it.
I haven't
Because-
watched it yet because it hasn't
because
come
I
out
haven't
yet.
watched it.
Yeah, it hasn't come out yet.
I I'm not going to give any spoilers, but like Five Nights at Freddy's, the video game, you lambast around because it has a bunch of jump scares.
Right, that's the
But
basis of the game.
the movie really didn't have that many of those.
Hmm.
And it was weird.
That's
And it just told a story. There are definitely like things I liked about it, and there are definitely things I don't like about it. So, oh,
yeah, I'm gonna check it out when it comes out. I've heard a lot of good things,
it's
but
on Peacock right now.
is it already? I think
I'm pretty sure it is.
I have a ton. I need to go through like there's one of those apps that you can go through and like see what you're subscribed to because I have
Yeah.
no idea anymore. Um,
He's lost
it's
track.
interesting that you mentioned Midsummer and Hereditary because I keep scrolling past those two and like I hover on them for a minute, like I want to watch them and then I keep going. But hey, if they're that good, I'll check them out.
There you go.
I'll add them to my list.
Midsommar is like it's a disturbing movie. It's not just a good horror movie. It's a movie that it's really messed up. Like the whole subplot in it, like how natural everything is in that movie. Like the most messed up things are pretty normal to that community.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely worth a watch, especially like the end scenes when you start to realize some of the things that you haven't been shown. Those are messed up.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you guys, speaking of which, a movie that's coming out that I'm going to see with Alexis maybe is It's a Wonderful Knife, which is like, it's just like about a pair.
We're doing this. We're doing this.
Yeah, we're doing this. I read the like I guess pretext to the plot, but apparently it's this person stopped a serial killer when they were young, and then they're teleported into a universe, or they're sent into a universe where they didn't stop that serial killer, and they have to relive like all the murders that person committed that they stopped.
So we are at a point in creativity because this is the second one now, I believe.
Really?
We're taking classic Christmas movies
Yeah.
and turning them into horror movies. Like that's where we're at as a creative society.
So
Screw being original.
I think the problem is that movie production and like everything is so expensive to make that producers don't want to put money into a project unless they are like it's backed by something that they think they could profit off of. So that's why you see a bunch of sequels or a bunch of remakes to old classic movies, why we have another Indiana Jones. Like we're not making original content.
They got to beat that dead horse until Harrison. Like, let's just be real.
Yeah. So
while Harrison Ford is still alive, they've got to do as much as they can with him. Like
usually I don't like to get into like the boomers or the like the older people thinking, but they are right. We are not creating as much new content as we should, and we're just retelling their stories.
But like, does it also give you a sense of like comfort that at any point in time you can just be like, screw it, I'm making a horror version of Dumb and Dumber, and like it's gonna get picked up by Netflix.
Kinda, yeah.
I mean, it's comforting. I can quit my day job, just go remake classic movies and give it a horror spin. Oh my god! Was there a
That's what
horror
I was
version of
checking.
Casablanca?
I don't think so yet.
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 That's the future of no
word.
reserves, you guys.
There you go.
We're just using this to fund our bad movie projects.
There you go.
But I was checking the one that you mentioned. It's a Wonderful Knife.
Yes, it's
And
a
I mean
wonderful knife.
Yeah, and it's made by the same guys who made Freaky, and it's not like a great horror movie, but it's a fun horror movie, and those have a place. Like
Yeah.
when I'm in sort of a mood. That one I also recently watched the one with the girl who plays Sabrina in the Netflix series. Oh, Totally Killer. That one is also like in the same genre. Those are like fun little horror movies. Like they have a few like
I will
jump
say,
scares.
since we're on like Netflix and Hulu and the streaming services, one of the things that really jarred me was the Scream adaptation, the series that I don't even know who made it, but they made like a Scream series, and like
Yeah.
the first 3 seasons are consistent with each other. Like they follow a story and they continue the story. And then like they decided for the 4th season to just disregard all that altogether and start new, and they just start you fresh. In the 4th season, in the 4th season, with like a new cast, a new plot, a new. I was just like, what are we doing here?
Like it's a shame that none of us mentioned Scream because those are pretty good as well.
Yes,
I like the
I like Scream.
Scream movies, but it kind of comes to like the idea of horror, and while it's terrifying at the end of the day in Scream, it's just a dude in a mask. Whereas like there's something more terrifying about something supernatural, right? Because like the Scream movies would have been over real quick if one of them had a gun.
Yeah.
But in Halloween and
They shoot him.
Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street and going into like The Conjuring and Paranormal Activity and all those modern ones, like you can shoot them, you can stab them, you can do whatever, and they're just gonna get up and keep going because there's a supernatural element. Whereas in Scream, like the credits would have rolled in the first 3 minutes if Sydney had a gun.
Yeah, that is
Like,
true.
so
I do think like the impact of those movies are more what they did for the horror genre. So like they basically created a whole new genre of movies. Those inspired in like the slashers and so on, they really gain a new life when when like Scream was made.
So you didn't watch the Scream series, then? Is
I
what
I
did
did
I'm.
not.
not.
None of you. Okay, so like
I think it was on MTV.
it was on MTV.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give part spoilers to this, but so the killer isn't the same every season. Like someone takes up the
Yeah,
mantle,
that's
and the
the
plot
basis
is
of
figuring out
Scream.
who takes up the mantle. But go on.
Like that's the basis of Scream is it's a bunch
Yeah.
of copycat killers because
Yep.
I think the first killer is Billy because he had like a really cliche 90 horrors movie
Yeah,
name.
it was Billy and the other guy was
The
I just
the
remember
guy that played
Steve, but it's not Steve. It's Stewie. Stewie.
Stewie.
Yeah.
No, wait,
Is it
it
Stewie?
wasn't. No, it wasn't Stewie David Arquette because
Oh,
then
it was David
In
Arquette.
Scary Movie it was Officer Doofy because it was
Yeah.
Dewey and Doofy.
No, it was Dewey. Deputy Dewey is his name. Yeah, Stewart is the other guy. It was Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, because Matthew Lillard was, and that was a weird. It was a weird, like plot twist at the end, for sure. But like, yeah, that's the whole like basis of Scream is it's a bunch of copycat killers. But at the end of the day, it's just a guy in a mask. And for me, yes, that's terrifying because like what humans are capable is far scarier than the supernatural. But
Yeah.
from the like when you're watching a horror movie, you're or any movie, you're putting yourself in the place of the protagonist. Like that's the view you're watching from, even if it's not in first person. Like that's what you're seeing.
Mm.
And in that moment, if you have a choice between like a demonic entity released from Pandora's box like in Hellraiser or a dude in a mask, I'm taking my chances on the dude with the mask personally. Just because again, like that's the thing that always confuses me is like all of those people are always running away from him and it's like fight him. He just has a knife. Like some of these people are like sheriffs in these movies. They have to have at least a little bit of training in fighting someone with a knife, I would assume.
They do end up like shooting them sometimes, and like they just move along with their life, I guess.
Yeah,
There are times that
there's
happens in the
plot armor.
series. Yeah,
But
there's plot armor, of course.
yeah. But I think that the Scream movies are well done. I just from a horror standpoint, like I like watching them as movies, but I don't get scared by them. And if I'm watching, like if I'm like, oh, I'm in a mood to watch horror movies, I want to feel that discomfort. I want to be uncomfortable. And I never have felt that with Scream.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not usually a movie that scares me. It's just like the whole series. It's one of those things in which a series has gone up in time. Like the last few Scream movies are pretty darn good compared to like I don't know, like the third Scream movie was kind of whatever, and the
Amazing.
2010 one was also kind of whatever. And then they like with the new characters and so on, they really took an upturn.
This, I guess this wouldn't qualify as like a Halloween movie, but it is a movie I see a lot more, like closer to Halloween. So I guess I'm going to count it. But what about a series of unfortunate events?
Yeah, I definitely don't consider that a Halloween movie at all.
I don't either, but
Um,
we do see it more closer to the Halloween season.
so I vividly remember reading the books as a child,
Hmm.
and I'm like, if you want to play the emotional damage soundboard, it's that right now. Like, that's actually a timely and accurate usage of that because that crap is disturbing.
Yes,
The movie's less.
there you go.
I did ask for it. I can't even be mad, I guess. Um, but the movies, there's too much. Like, it's Jim Carrey or.
You can't hate Jim Carrey. That's
Right,
the thing.
but what I'm saying is it's Jim Carrey or Neil Patrick Harris in the Netflix adaptation. And it's like Olaf, that's his name, right?
Yes,
Jan
Olaf's.
Olaf. Um, like he should feel more like a villain and more
You think he feels
yes,
too campy?
yes, he's whimsical in the books, but he's also a little terrifying, and you don't get that from Jim Carrey or Neil Patrick Harris.
I think I
And
get that
so
more with Neil Patrick Harris.
you definitely get it more from Neil Patrick Harris because I'm gonna get crucified for this. Neil Patrick Harris is a better actor than Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's a better comedian.
Ooh.
Tell me
Okay.
I'm wrong though. Tell me I'm wrong though. It goes back to the Adam Sandler conversation. Adam Sandler plays the same character in every movie. Yes, that's a good character, but there's only so many shoobity doos you can hear before you've heard them all.
Doobity Jews, you can hear.
Tell me,
Apart from the last Netflix one, not Netflix, A24 one, something something diamonds, in which is the jeweler. I don't remember the name.
I don't
That
know.
one is pretty serious. The one with Kevin Garnett. Now I have
I
to
don't
go
remember.
check.
Um, but no, the series of unfortunate events. It's as a book, it's absolutely terrifying and depressing and mentally and emotionally scarring. But the movie, no, not so much. I think Harry Potter is more like you see that during Halloween and Christmas,
Sure.
and I think that has more of the horror. Like not, I don't want to say horror because it's not a horror movie, but like there are horror elements to it. Those are just really.
It's Uncut Gems.
I've never
Did
seen it.
no one see Uncut Gems?
I did
No one
not.
saw. Nope.
Yeah, no
Okay,
one. You might be the
definitely
only
need.
one.
Oh, you need to go watch it. It's with Sandler, but it's like it's nothing to do with like the comedies. It's
I mean,
a drama and so on. And he has Kevin Garnett, so
he does have like serious movies. Like I think Spanglish was that one.
yeah, I
But
believe so.
it's his memorable characters. Like go watch Billy Madison. Go watch uh
Zohan.
Zo Zohan. Was he in
You don't
Zohan?
mess with Zohan.
He was in
Yeah,
Zohan.
he was
Um
Zohan.
go watch Eight Crazy Nights or um
Eight
Happy
Crazy Nights is
Gilmore
low key good.
or Big Daddy. They're all the same characters. The Wedding Singer, even in The Wedding Singer, which is a more serious comedy relative to like when it came out. Like if you look at comedies of the era,
That's
he's
my boy.
still
That's my boy. It's a great one.
it,
The one
it's
with the Lonely Island guy.
but he plays the same character. Like he
That
might
is true.
change it and be more serious, but he's still gonna say something along the lines of shoobity doo every single movie because it's like The Rock. You watch it because you like The Rock, but let's not pretend The Rock is a great actor. He's good.
Yeah,
He's not great.
that is
And
true.
I just, we're going completely off the rails tonight, everybody. Thank you for tuning into our sports podcast.
You're the one.
Um,
Hey, you pitched the idea of the special
I did.
episode.
I did.
You did. You did.
It is a special. It is a Halloween special. So
Okay.
while our core fundamental here is sports podcast, sports radio, um, we're just having fun. This is fun. You're having fun if you're listening at home. I hope.
You,
I
you've probably
love the
crossed.
confidence. I love the confidence. I hope.
Well, to be
I hope
like
at the end.
people that are tuning in, they don't want like movies, but hopefully we're changing that. Hopefully we're giving them some. Who gave him a soundboard? Hopefully they're getting like good recommendation. Like, oh yeah, we're recommending Halloween. Go check that out. Like, but Alex did give those recommendations to movies that you might have never heard of because I scroll past them on Netflix all the time.
Sure.
And like I want to watch them. It's just like we're in an age of like immediate gratification. I screwed up saying that so badly.
Gratification, huh?
Gratification. Where like we have like when we were kids, you watched what was on TV or what you had the DVD of.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get to like scroll Netflix for 5 hours until you finally settle on watching like some stupid stand-up special that you've watched a million times because it
Here's the
makes you
thing.
laugh.
Here's the thing. You get used to that though. You do that on Netflix, and then you do that everywhere. You do
Oh my
that
God,
on
yeah.
Reddit. You do that on
No.
YouTube. You
No,
do
we
that
call
on.
it-
Go ahead.
No, it has a term. Do you know what the term is?
Danger scrolling. I don't know.
Doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling. Doom.
Yeah, it's a problem because like I've gotten to the point where like when I'm scrolling Reddit, I don't like scroll Reddit. I just click and then I scroll through. So like everything is just popping up on my screen, and that leads to problems. Like the other day, like I was talking about. So a couple days ago, Adam Johnson, former NHL player who was playing overseas, died. After a freak accident on the ice. He's a hockey player. Skate blade caught him in the throat, bled out on the ice. Awful.
Oh, I saw
did
that.
not want to or need to see the video, but I did because of my doom scrolling habits. It is the worst sports injury I have ever seen in my life. I never want to see anything like it again.
Yep.
And it's all because of my habit of just scrolling through and not reading what I'm scrolling through. Like, do not watch that video. Do not watch that video. If you just heard me talk about it and you're like, oh, that sounds interesting, get help, first off. But don't do it. Do not do it. It is horrible. It is agonizing. You feel terrible, and you see it for like at least 3 days now. I can say 3 days. It's probably longer than that, but it flashes into my head randomly, and don't do it. Take my advice. The one thing you learned from me today, do not watch that video. That reminds me, speaking of that, since we're just completely throwing the script on the train, have you guys ever watched crap, now that I've started talking, I forget what it's called. There was a series of movies made in the 80s, 90s, I think, I don't know.
Oh boy.
Where it was like actual footage of terrible, horrible things like cults, like smashing monkeys in the head with a hammer and eating their brains.
The heck?
Yeah, hold on. It's I remember.
I don't think we have gone off the rails. I think we have just took that roller coaster and we just went completely to the sky.
Yeah. We're off in the stratosphere somewhere at this point.
Someone listening is shouting it out because it's like it's a series.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
No. I'm telling you, there is someone listening that's like, you idiot. It's called Link.
I have absolutely no clue what it is.
Yeah.
Is it? Wait. It just came to my head. Faces.
Oh no.
I don't know if it's actually accurate. I just remember Faces of Death.
Faces.
That sounds
it's
lovely.
Banned in, Faces of Death was deemed video nasty and banned in several countries due to its extreme and objectionable content. The original film contains a mixture of real footage and movie magic, with about 60% being real and 40% being fake. So, if you pull up the Wikipedia page, you I don't remember how I first saw it. I think it was like in our video collection. So like there's
You
people
have a
and it like
problem.
no. This you're when you realize that I watched this at like 6 years old because like I wasn't supposed to watch it. Don't think like my parents were like, "Here, watch this." But like
Mm-hmm.
I just went and grabbed something and put it in, and like there's like embalming of corpses and like someone getting killed by the electric chair, and
And Ren's
I'm
like, yeah, this
sure
is fine.
I'm sure a lot of things are starting to make sense for y'all now. There was a guy getting shot by a SWAT team. You know,
Lovely.
a cannibalistic cult removing a body from a morgue and eating it before
Normal
partaking
everyday
in an
stuff.
orgy.
Everyday stuff.
A parachute jump that goes terribly wrong. Yeah. So if you're wondering why is Ren the way he is, it's because this is what I watched when I was 6 years old. Again, wasn't supposed to,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
but I did, and it's horrible. Faces of Death. If you want to just be grossed out, check it out. It's not really.
What's wrong
It's
with
scary. It's scary, but it's gross.
you?
I'm just glad I remembered what it was called because that was gonna bother
Oh
me.
yeah. Oh, thank God. Thank God that the death cult.
There's a series. You don't understand like this. I think it's still going. Hold on, let me.
It's so...
I mean, it's like I said, it's banned in a lot of countries, but I think
Oh
that
yeah. So you're gonna need a VPN to see this.
it has a 1-star review on Rotten Tomatoes. There's legal cases.
No. Oh no. I'm sure.
So Legendary Entertainment has acquired the rights to Faces of Death, with plans to launch a new horror franchise,
No.
with filming starting in April 2023.
No.
Yeah, so there's a new one coming. There is a new one coming.
We totally needed that in our life.
You did.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just looking like at the trailer. It's not going, but like the first image that I have of the trailer, this dude is eating some sort of muscle.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that's the monkey brains. That's the monkey brains.
that's
Yeah, that's
lovely. Then
that's when they smash a monkey's head with a hammer and eat its brains.
it is
Why
definitely
why
what I
would it
needed
be?
to know. For
Why
sure.
wouldn't that be the first image you would put on the trailer?
Look. Shock horror was a thing. Like we still do shock horror because why else would the human centipede be a thing? Or Saw? Because those aren't scary, they're just gross.
Oh, the last Saw I went and watched on Saturday. It's not too bad. It's not as gruesome as some of the other one,
I,
and it
I
actually has
think
some sort of story. It's not just like torture porn.
so the first Saw, that's what it is. So the first Saw I think was a good movie from like
Yes,
a
I
movie
agree.
standpoint. After that, it's the same with like The Purge. Like the first Purge was great.
Purge.
And then it's just like they're like, "Oh man, that did really well. Let's keep doing it until it stops making money." And I haven't watched the last Saw obviously, but
It is
um
good. Like
like
good for a Saw movie. It has an history and like it's not just deaths every single place. You actually get some like insight of to what is the life of Jigsaw, and it's there's character development basically.
yeah, and world building, which is something that
Yes,
Saw has really lacked because it was just
exactly.
like, "Ah, you're all here and you're all gonna die." Wow.
Yes,
Going to
exactly.
die.
And the deaths, like, they're still pretty graphic. Like, the first one, at least, is graphic. The rest is kind of whatever. But, I mean, it's nothing like the other ones. The other ones were way too much.
Um, what else do you guys want to talk about, or do you want to get into our quick lists of horror stories? Because I'm fine just going completely off the rails and talking about like this. This is fun. This is different. This is new. Like virgin ground right here. We are breaking a new ground for No Reserves Radio. We are going in pop culture. I'm here
We're
for it.
eventually gonna have an episode just of pop culture at this
You know,
point.
I
so
am not going to be the host of that.
we have actually talked, like, the glance behind the veil here. When we first launched No Reserves, like the night that we launched it, we talked about the eventual football spinoff,
Yep.
and then going into like other sports and bringing more people on because it's too much workload for what was at the time 3 of us. Um, I think we settled on the football podcast being a thing for sure. Baseball, we talked about more doing like seasonally, like in
Specials.
during the playoffs.
Yeah.
Just because there's too much going on in baseball to do it as like another podcast. Like if you were doing only baseball, sure, absolutely. And then we also talked about doing like a pop culture, movies, books, video games, whatever.
Yep.
So maybe that's what's next because like who knows? Hey, we might need another co-host if you're interested. Listener at home, submit your application to Angelo.
To me?
To Angelo.
Okay. Sure.
You are as alarming
Absolutely.
as this is in the corporate umbrella of No
He's going to
Reserves.
call me the
Angelo
CEO.
is no, God no. God no. In the corporate umbrella of No Reserves, Angelo is now HR.
I'm H. Oh, God.
You're human resources.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that's bad for all of us.
Eh.
HR, I actually have a complaint to make. Where should I address it to? Just let me know, please.
Yeah, don't worry.
Angelo at No Reserves Radio.
Just put it on my desk and I'll get to it in 4 to never.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's you're just working like every single human resource office. Just perfect.
So what is? Let's just keep going off the rails because I'm actually having fun doing this. What is
Okay.
the scariest thing you've ever seen? Like, what is the thing that like in the moment just like made you crap your pants?
I don't know. That's a very good question because I've lived a relatively safe life.
Yeah, like I guess I can go first. There's like Portugal is fairly safe, but having walked on fairly safe on metros and so on, like that's subways for you, my bad. Having
Okay.
taken some rides on subways and so on, like there's the occasional guy who basically just calls it, and that's pretty shocking when it happens. I've experienced that and this is getting heavy, so I will eventually change that. That also happened on like trains and so on, so
Calls it.
that's yeah. I'm just gonna say calls it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
no,
that was
That's
pretty like
pretty good.
shocking.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I guess sports wise, since this is a sports show, but like
Oh,
for
is it?
example, the Damar Hamlin situation that happened in
That has
football
to
the
be
past year. Yeah. Also,
the
like a few,
Paul George.
yeah, a few examples happened as well in soccer. There's a player that played for a rival team of mine here in Portugal. His name was, I'm probably gonna butcher this because it was like 2002, 2003, but Mickey Fier, dude basically just had an heart attack on the field, just dropped that basically. Like a second he was completely fine. The next second he was getting up from a foul, and just basically had an heart attack, just completely fell on his back, and it was done. Yeah, so that was pretty scary when I watched it live. I
So
was a kid, but
so when I was young, I my stepmom and my dad coached softball, and I was one of the middle of the lineup hitters. So I was up and I just blasted one. I mean, absolutely like smashed it right into the pitcher, and he freaking caught it. and he didn't get up. And I later found out that he caught it on like his palm. He didn't catch it in the webbing, and it like broke part of his hand.
Oh.
Yikes.
For me, this is like I don't want to use the term hilarious because of what we're talking about, but it is funny that like Alex and I are talking about like the times we saw people unaliving, and Angelo's like, "Yeah, I saw someone
Calls it.
break their hand once."
Calls it.
So for me, this is one of the memories in the back of my head always.
Core memory unlocked.
Not a core memory. I mean, yeah, core memory because it was when I was like 5 or 6. I was really young. So it's something that like during the developmental years of the gray matter, I saw it, and it was it does something to you when you see a dead body as a kid.
That's fair.
You just get used to it, but the way it happened. So we have this. I'm from a very small town in the Midwest, very very small town. And a train used to run through that small town. So at one point in time, when that line was closed, they tore up all the tracks, whatever, and they built a park in the middle of. That's actually the park that we played at, Angelo.
Really?
So in the back of this park, there is the remains of like a bridge. Like the concrete's all there for a train, except there's no tracks, obviously. And when I was younger, well, not when I was younger, but like when I was younger, kids would climb up on it and they would sit up there and whatever. And there was this little ledge on the bottom, like it was probably a maintenance area for the tracks when the tracks were there. And it's like 30 feet off the ground. There's a creek that runs underneath it and a bunch of like cement blocks and whatever. And kids would climb up on the bridge and drop down to that area and they would sit there. This girl, I normally would remember her name because again, it sticks with you. Her and her friends were up there and she went to jump down to that lower ledge and she was wearing flip-flops. Her foot caught, she fell head first onto the concrete below when my friends and I were across the bridge from her. I'm going to spare the details. Let's just say it wasn't a good sight. It was something that thinking about even now kind of makes me a little nauseous. Yeah. So that. Besides that, I've also been almost hit by cars. I think we've all done that, but like I've like almost been hit by cars.
Yeah,
I've been
his was closer.
what?
Yours were closer.
I mean like if I didn't get grabbed, I would have got drilled by a bus. That kind of. So it's not like, oh, I almost got hit by a car and they stopped. No, like if someone didn't grab the back of my shirt, I would be like
in Narnia.
Yeah. So, yeah, which you saw someone break their hand though, so that's up there.
This guy having to one up me.
Gotta dunk on Angelo. It's
Of course.
not that hard to do.
Wow.
What else? What else have we got to talk about before we start talking sports? What other spooky things can we talk about? Do you guys believe in ghosts?
Oh.
So I actually know Angelo's answer because we were just talking about this yesterday. Him and I have the same answer. But Alex, do you believe in ghosts?
So I personally don't,
Okay.
but there's a few, like not from me, but from my girlfriend since she was pretty small. There's a few stories that she tells me that's kind of wants to make me believe it, and I'm not gonna tell like the whole thing, but like for example, there was one in which ever since she was like a little kid until I believe it was like 6, 7 years old. She always mentioned there was a tall old woman with a black dress, and that she would wave at her. And this would be like in her house, outside of her house, like in the nearbys. She always claimed that she saw something like a figure like this. And her brother, who wasn't alive back then, I believe he was born in 2011 or something. When he was young, until the same age that she was, he also claimed the same exact thing, and he didn't know of the story, but he always claimed the same thing. And then her nephew, who was born, I believe it was around 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. When he was small, he like I believe it was 2, 3 years old. He always said that he didn't want to enter the room because there was the same exact figure, her room, because there was the same exact figure in the corner of the room. So those stories sort of make me want to believe in it, but I personally never experienced something like that. So I'm pretty skeptical on everything like paranormal, everything like subnatural, something, everything like that. I'm always sort of skeptical on. But yeah, like those stories, those raise some really nasty fears for me.
See, that's Angelo and I were talking about it yesterday because unless I misunderstood what he was saying, him and I also don't believe in them. Um, but like I have an obsession with watching like ghost hunting shows, and like I don't know why. Now I've had experiences that I can't explain, but just because I can't explain them doesn't mean like, oh, ghosts. For
Right.
example, like so when I was 17, I was fortunate enough to have my great grandmother and my great great grandmother in my life, for brief periods of time. When I was 17, my great grandmother had a stroke, and she got moved into hospice. Um, and my uncle and I were the only two available at the time to start getting like her house ready to be sold. So like we had to get all the stuff out of there, clean it up, spruce it up, whatever. But he lived in Georgia at the time, and I lived in the same small town that she lived in. So I was going to go over and start, right? So I went over one day, like 3 in the afternoon, and I left the garage open because you had to go through the garage and up the staircase to get into the house. And then there was like a deck that you could go out the front to get out on. But it was like it was a weird house. It wasn't like it had a front porch. It was you went up through the garage or you went up like around the back of the house onto a porch. So to start airing the house out, I left the door open to the garage. And my great great grandmother had passed away in this house. So the entire time I'm working, like I just keep hearing noises. Like I can't tell you what the noises are, like a thud here, a bump here, like probably just normal house noises. But again, 17-year-old kid
Yep.
alone in a house that someone died in, kind of creepy. Um, and I'm just working upstairs, and suddenly every door in the house slams shut. I left. I don't think it was ghosts, but I left. And I did not go back until my uncle got there. I can't explain what happened because, if one of the doors slammed, oh, wind knocked the door closed. But closets, everything, every single door in that house slammed. Sure, there's a perfectly logical explanation, probably a coincidence. Wind blew through the house at the right time and shut all the doors. That's the closest I've been, though.
So I think that hmm, I think that our brain has the ability to like make us believe things are happening even though they aren't happening. Now, I'm not saying like the doors didn't shut, but in certain examples, like I'm sure if you believe in the paranormal, then It's like if you're a hammer, everything's a nail. If you believe in the paranormal, you're going to look for everything to be answered
Yeah,
by the
absolutely.
paranormal.
It there's an old adage, if you think of a yellow car, you're going to see a yellow car. It's not that there's more yellow cars on the road, it's just you're looking for it.
Right, exactly.
So sorry, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was basically the gist of it. I think that like we want to answer as humans. We want to be able to answer every question. And the reality is some questions you either don't have the capacity to answer, don't have the tools at the time to answer, and we always want to default to like, oh, it's God, oh, it's ghosts, oh, it's something, but maybe it's just you don't know at the time.
Right, I think that's a very normal train of thought is I can't explain it. So it has to be something that I